The old factory stood deep in the wasteland, as lifeless as the withered plants around it. After the man entered the factory with his dog, he went straight to the glass chamber and stared at the woman who had been soaked pale and cold. To the man, white was the purest and cleanest color. He used bleach to soak the woman, making her completely white, untouched by any impurity. Then he took off his shirt, revealing 14 shocking iron rings on his back, attached chains to them, and used a lift to suspend himself in midair above the woman. During the suspension, the skin on his back was pulled out of shape, and the loyal little white dog barked frantically, as if it could feel its owner's pain. The man was indeed in agony, but looking at the doll-like woman, his twisted desire and the thrill of weightlessness soon overwhelmed the suffering. After some time, the woman's body began to emit a foul stench, and the killer discarded her under a bridge. Federal investigator Peter arrived at the scene immediately and confirmed that she was the 7th victim of the serial murder case. The killer's targets were all young and beautiful women, usually drowned first, then turned into white dolls for him to play with, and finally fitted with an iron collar to show they belonged to him. Police informed the federal agents that the killer's methods were highly skilled, leaving no flaws so far, and previous autopsy reports had all proven useless. Agent Peter took a tough stance, demanding full cooperation from the police and requiring the latest autopsy report as quickly as possible. By then, the killer had already locked on to his new target. Julia had a charming smile and flawless white skin, and her beautiful blonde hair looked just like the dolls in his collection. The killer stared obsessively, then suddenly gasped for breath as a piercing headache struck, forcing him to grab a bottle of pills and swallow a handful to ease the pain. The autopsy report showed that the woman's lungs contained a large amount of water, and her body was covered with rust and traces of male fluid, exactly the same as the previous 6 victims. But unlike the others, a single white dog hair was found on her body. No police dogs had been brought during the search, and the victim herself did not own a dog, so the white dog was highly likely the killer's pet. Through testing the hair, Peter discovered with surprise that it lacked melanin, which meant the killer's pet was an albino dog. Such dogs are extremely rare, which instantly narrowed down the search area. Meanwhile, late at night, Julia had just finished work and was about to start her car when a chilling howl of a dog came from behind her. She rushed out of the car to check, thinking she had accidentally hit the white dog in front of her. At that moment, the killer sprang out from the shadows, covering Julia's mouth and nose, quickly rendering her unconscious. The news of Julia's disappearance soon reached the bureau. The previous 7 murders had occurred months apart, but this time, only 6 days had passed since the last victim's death, showing that the killer could no longer control himself. In Peter's view, the shortened interval meant only 2 possibilities. Either the killer was arrogant, deliberately leaving clues to provoke the police, confident he could stay free, or he was mentally ill, gradually losing control, secretly hoping to be caught. Peter was right. The ruthless killer was indeed mentally ill, relying on pills every time he relapsed to suppress his condition. But the pills only eased physical pain such as headaches and cramps, offering no relief for his mental instability. Following the clue of the albino dog, police tracked a pet store that revealed a man had bought an albino puppy 3 years earlier and had registered it under the name Carl. With Carl's residence confirmed, Peter placed snipers on high ground, surrounded the house with special forces, and made the most precise arrangements. At his command, the strike team moved in, tense and alert, as they searched the house. When they reached the kitchen, everyone was stunned. The serial killer Carl had collapsed on the floor, his vital signs extremely weak. Peter ordered him rushed to the hospital, warning his men to watch him closely in case he was faking and never to remove his handcuffs. Then Peter personally went down to Carl's basement, where he found countless grotesque human-bird dolls and gruesome tools for handling corpses. The most shocking discovery was a videotape that recorded an entire victim's drowning process. On the tape, the previous victim was trapped in the glass chamber, with water injected every few hours, until 2 days later, the chamber was completely filled. Carl seemed to enjoy slowly torturing his victims, prolonging the moment of death to savor their desperate screams. Since only a few hours had passed since Julia's disappearance, she was very likely still alive, and Carl was the only one who knew where she was. Peter rushed to the hospital, where Dr. Reed told him Carl would never wake again. His body still lived, but his mind had fallen into an endless dream. It turned out Carl suffered from a rare disorder called Wayland's syndrome, one of the most severe forms of schizophrenia. The illness came from a viral attack on the brain, which would lie dormant until triggered, then suddenly flare up to destroy the nervous system. Looking back at past cases of Wayland's syndrome, the triggers were almost always connected to water. Peter begged Dr. Reed to use strong medicine to wake Carl, since Julia was somewhere unknown, and if not rescued within 40 hours, she would drown. Dr. Reed explained that psychiatric medication was useless for Wayland's patients. Although Carl could not be awakened, there was another method: sending a dream walker into his mind to build a bridge with his spirit. The dream walker Dr. Reed mentioned was Catherine, a child psychologist working at the Mental Health Research Center. At the center, there was also a boy trapped in his dream, unable to wake. Catherine repeatedly entered young Edward's inner world, trying to guide him out of his nightmare. But every time at the crucial moment, Edward's other personality turned into a monster and attacked her, forcing her to withdraw. The dream treatment had been ongoing for 18 months, and Edward's father, Lucien, seeing no progress at all, grew increasingly distrustful of Catherine, even questioning the very validity of the dream project. Catherine firmly believed she had already touched the depths of Edward's heart, and she begged Lucien to wait patiently for another 6 months. She told Miriam that since she could not gain control in Edward's dream, why not change her approach and bring Edward into her own dream? Miriam immediately interrupted Catherine, saying such an attempt was far too dangerous, because when entering someone else's dream, the chip in hand could always stop the process, but in her own dream, she could not wake up whenever she wanted. If she accidentally died during the experiment, her body in reality could very likely die with her, and it was not worth losing her life for the sake of work.
I do it all the time.
Yes, but you're a willing participant, Catherine. You're aware of what's happening. Edward's in a coma. And besides, we don't know what effect it will have on you.
The moment Peter arrived at the research center, he demanded that Catherine enter Carl's dream. Catherine believed that even if Carl were awake, he would never reveal Julia's whereabouts. To gain his trust and soften him would take at least several months, which was impossible to achieve in just a few dozen hours, and rashly entering the dream of a criminally insane man was far too risky. Catherine clearly rejected Peter, but when she saw the images of the female victims and heard their desperate cries for help, she could not harden her heart. The dream experiment device started up. The head of the center personally adjusted the parameters, while Miriam implanted a microchip in Catherine's hand. To end the experiment, all she had to do was press the chip. Catherine was extremely nervous, for this time she was not facing a child with psychological issues, but a bloodthirsty serial killer. Carl's dream was damp, like a sweater soaked in dirty water. Her vision stretched from the sweater into the icy lake, and at the center of the water, a group of crazed Christians were chanting the Bible. One of them was holding a drowning young Carl, as if performing some kind of cult ritual. Catherine could not see clearly, and her consciousness soon drifted into the sewers. She could feel the dampness all around, filthy blood dripping from above until it soiled the white sand on her face. Only then did she gain the ability to move freely in the dream. The things in the sewers were all abstract, and their proportions defied logic. Right next to the sewer was a hidden chamber, where a black dog was bathing in blood. Suddenly, the figure of a young boy flashed before her eyes, and then disappeared in an instant. Catherine hurried after him, only to find young Carl on the far side of a cliff. He climbed a long staircase quickly, clearly wanting to get away from her. Catherine called out to him gently, saying she meant no harm. Perhaps moved by her sincerity and kindness, the next second everything went dark, and together they appeared in a bright and warm room. Blocking her view was a docile horse. As she stroked the horse, Catherine mentioned that a boy named Edward also loved horses. She tried to start a conversation with young Carl, but to her surprise, his expression suddenly twisted with fear. The clock above his head spun rapidly, and just as it was about to reach the red zone, young Carl rushed forward and shoved her aside. The next moment, a row of glass blades dropped from above, slicing the horse into 12 pieces. Catherine's heart nearly stopped. If she had not been pushed, she too would have been cut apart. Once she calmed herself, she realized Carl had already run away. Catherine walked toward the only exit and entered a dim and eerie basement. In front of her were 7 glass chambers, but thick filth smeared across them made it impossible to see inside. She felt this was the darkest corner of Carl's mind, yet to understand more, she forced herself to pull the lever. As the gears screeched, the glass chambers opened one by one. Half-rotted women dressed like dolls twisted stiffly inside, their movements grotesque and unsettling. At that moment, a hulking, muscular figure suddenly appeared behind her and knocked her unconscious with a single strike. She was carried into a grand hall, and when her body was thrown heavily to the ground, she slowly regained awareness. Before her sat a towering man on a throne with 14 iron rings embedded in his back, looking exactly like Carl, As he advanced step by step, Catherine's heart pounded as if it would burst. When he demanded to know how she had entered this place, his massive hands were about to fall on her, and she screamed, slamming her palm against the chip, barely escaping Carl's nightmare. Back in the real world, she was still trembling, her body cold and stiff. The dream experiment was halted for the time being. Catherine told Peter that every person's inner world held secrets unseen by others, as well as a side of darkness they never wanted revealed. Most people suffering from schizophrenia were not monsters. They were victims of a virus attacking their brains, unable to distinguish dream from reality, splitting off another personality to protect themselves. Like Edward. But Carl was different. His self had been devoured, and what remained was a terrifying creature that ruled over him, indulging itself in the dark depths of his dream. Catherine refused to enter Carl's twisted mind again, saying once was more than enough. Seeing her unwillingness to continue the experiment, Peter did not press her, but instead shared his own story. Years ago, when Peter was still a prosecutor, a criminal harmed an 8-year-old girl, but because the evidence was destroyed, he was acquitted. That same night, the man broke into the girl's home, mutilated her, and placed her heart in the refrigerator. When her parents returned, they found the man calmly sitting there, holding the girl's broken body while watching television. After that, Peter resigned as a prosecutor and joined the bureau, vowing to bring every criminal to justice. Kind-hearted Catherine was moved by his story, and she admitted that deep inside Carl there was still a fragment of goodness. In his dream, the little boy was the embodiment of that fragile goodness. She was willing to try again, starting with Carl's childhood. Peter went on to say that the man who destroyed the girl had once again escaped justice and was likely now living comfortably in a psychiatric hospital. He had claimed that childhood abuse caused his mental breakdown, and inflicting suffering on young girls made him feel better. Peter grew agitated, declaring that a painful childhood must never be an excuse for crime, because those truly wounded would never harm others. Those who had been drenched by the rain would choose to hold an umbrella for others, not tear it apart. Catherine listened quietly, suspecting Peter himself had endured an unfortunate childhood, but she did not pry further. The second dream experiment began. This time, Catherine asked for Carl's dog to be present, hoping the loyalty of the animal might open Carl's heart. The device was adjusted, and the button had already been pressed, but Catherine still had not entered the dream. The director coldly claimed the power system had malfunctioned and told Catherine to adjust the circuits herself. As she walked toward them groggily, she suddenly felt a chill behind her. Turning around, she saw her own body suspended in midair. She realized she had already entered the dream, and everything just now had been created by her own mind. Was it because, deep down, she so strongly rejected making contact with Carl? Catherine had no time to think before she realized she was trapped inside a narrow glass box. She struggled desperately, suddenly forcing open the top of the box, floating upward weightlessly, only to be yanked back down by a rope. She drifted again in a palace of weightlessness, completely unable to move freely. Fortunately, the white dog appeared before her, and Catherine shouted to it, though her voice was still hollow and weak. Behind the dog, a dim house appeared, and in an instant, she was transported into Carl's home. Young Carl was obedient and sensible, concentrating on scrubbing the dishes. Catherine took out a mirror, saying that the light in the glass could help them find each other. Carl hesitated as he took the mirror, but accidentally broke a dish. He immediately locked Catherine inside the storage room, facing his father's insults and beatings alone. Catherine wanted to save him, but she could neither make a sound nor open the door, forced to remain a silent spectator. Carl's mother tried to intervene, but it only made her husband more violent. He called his wife a faithless woman who had abandoned her family, insulting her, even demanding that Carl insult her as well. Whenever young Carl idled away playing with dolls, his father would scold him for being effeminate. Whipping him with a belt was routine, and he would often torment him with a scorching hot iron. Hearing young Carl's screams, Catherine's eyes blurred with tears. She blinked hard, only to find herself now inside a small wooden cabin. Carl appeared before her, having drowned his first love, and now cruelly dismembering her. Catherine tried to speak with him, but his words were full of curses, echoing the cruelty of his abusive father. It turned out the cult ritual she had seen in her first dream entry was hosted by Carl's father. Carl had been held underwater again and again until he nearly suffocated, only to be pulled up at the last moment. Followers stood by coldly, not one stepping forward to save him. After he passed out from suffocation, his father took him home and broke 3 of his ribs. He was only 6 years old that year. To protect himself, he split off an evil persona. As Catherine saw Carl grow more agitated, she quietly placed her hand on the chip in her palm, preparing to press it at any moment. When she asked where Julia was, Carl's expression turned strange, and he suddenly walked into the darkness, transforming into a horned monster. Catherine's hands were seized with crushing force, and the back of her head slammed against the ground. Now powerless to press the chip, she could only let Monster Carl fasten a spiked collar around her neck. Meanwhile, Miriam noticed Catherine's pulse becoming erratic and knew she was lost inside Carl's dream. But if they forcibly pulled her out, her brain could be permanently damaged. The only way to save Catherine was for another person to enter Carl's dream. Without hesitation, Peter put on the experimental suit and launched the dream connection as fast as possible. Before his eyes appeared countless colorful spheres, splitting and merging until they formed a barren landscape. On a mound sat 3 identical women, each speaking different words. The first said she wanted to have her son back. The second said giving birth was just a transaction, and the third said her son was a soulless bad man. This was Carl's tangled image of his mother, weak, holding a trace of love, yet selfish and bitter. A beam of white light shone in the distance, and Peter followed it to find young Carl, who was using the mirror's reflection to guide him. Young Carl led Peter to Catherine, then hurried away. By now, Catherine had lost her sense of self, reduced to a toy of the Monster Carl. Peter tried to awaken her, but was distracted by her beauty. At that moment, the Monster Carl crept up behind Peter and threw a red cloth over his head. When it was pulled off, Peter found himself bound to a wooden board. The monster carefully chose a golden pair of scissors, grinning as he cut open Peter's abdomen. Metal spikes churned inside him, leaving Peter in unbearable pain with no chance to resist. All he could do was place his hope in Catherine, crying out her deepest pain, asking if she remembered her brother, who had been in a coma for 6 months after a car accident before he passed away. Catherine's tears flowed uncontrollably, and she grabbed an awl, driving it fiercely into the Monster Carl's shoulder. In an instant, the scene shifted. Catherine and Peter were inside a locked chamber, and young Carl appeared with them. Catherine saw the wound on the boy's shoulder and quickly comforted him, promising she would never hurt him again. The boy, desperate for love, hugged his gentle sister tightly, savoring warmth he had never known. Peter's eyes caught the water tank nearby. The woman floating inside resembled the bleached, doll-like corpses. He examined the tank closely and spotted a symbol he recognized. It struck him at once. He now knew how to find Julia. By now, young Carl no longer held any value to him, so Peter pulled Catherine away. Suddenly, the Monster Carl appeared, seizing young Carl.
I promise!
Catherine was deeply worried, promising the boy she would return for him. At that moment, Peter pressed the chip in her hand, and they both returned to the real world. The symbol on the tank in the dream was exactly the same as the one on the lift platform in Carl's basement. Peter traced the lead through a dealer and found the factory, realizing it was exactly where Carl worked. Meanwhile, Catherine stayed in the lab. Carl lay nearby, breathing rapidly, looking to be in great pain. His fragile and kind personality trusted Catherine completely, and if she abandoned him now, the kind young Carl would surely be destroyed forever. Catherine knew she had no time to discuss with the team, so she resolutely changed the lab's password and personally adjusted the experimental device. Before entering the dream, she saw a tarot card of the Virgin Mary and a snow-filled crystal ball. Once inside the dream, she herself transformed into a radiant, holy virgin. In a paradise of birdsong and flowers, young Carl slowly walked toward her, sitting carefully at her side. She gently kept him company, assuring him she had not broken her promise and would do everything in her power to help him. Carl was deeply moved, wishing only to stay here forever, never parting from Catherine. Catherine knew she could not abandon the real world, nor could she lie to him, so she honestly told him no. Young Carl suddenly transformed into the grown-up Carl, but there was no hostility on his face, only tears, as he said, "When I was a child, I once rescued an injured little bird. I hid it carefully, but my father found it. If I let it go, it would die in sickness and suffering, but if I kept it, my father would torment it to death. So I filled a basin with water and drowned it myself." As he grew older, Carl often thought of that bird. He envied it, for it had tasted a brief moment of warmth and did not suffer too long. If only he had drowned during his baptism that day, he would not have had his ribs broken by his father, nor endured such a dark and agonizing childhood. As he spoke, he suddenly turned back into young Carl, with poisonous insects crawling across his body. The beautiful paradise was being eroded by a poisonous gas. Young Carl told Catherine, "He has found me. No matter where I run, he will always come." The words had barely left his lips when a serpent-skinned man rose from the pool. This was the final form of the Monster Carl. Catherine instantly transformed into a warrior goddess clad in shining armor, raising her sword with determination. It turned out she had not entered Carl's dream at all, but had reversed the device, pulling Carl into her dream instead. Here, on her own ground, she was invincible, strong enough to protect the child Carl. With one strike, she drove her sword straight into the monster Carl's chest, but as blood poured forth, he laughed wildly, shouting, "I am that child, can you really kill me?" Catherine froze, glancing back, only to see the same wound appear in young Carl's chest. As she gently embraced the boy, she turned back into the loving virgin. Young Carl smiled with relief, pleading softly for Catherine to save him. Catherine looked toward the pool and told him, "You may stay here forever, with me." Carl loved the feeling of weightlessness, floating in water, slowly suffocating. It was painful, but far less painful than living. For him, death was the greatest release. To die within love was the happiest ending, because at least he had once felt someone's true compassion, and that was enough. Young Carl breathed his last, and the monster Carl vanished as well. Death often accompanies life. Julia, trapped in the water tank, was rescued by Peter, sobbing uncontrollably in his arms. Her tears were sweet, the tears of survival and joy. In the real world, Carl took his final breath, and someone nearby wept bitterly for him. In the end, the Bureau refused to recognize Catherine's contribution, dismissing dream entry as nonsense, claiming instead that the center's drugs had made Peter hallucinate. But Peter knew every moment he had experienced was real, and he thanked Catherine sincerely. Catherine herself did not care about the doubts of the outside world. She took in Carl's dog, reversed the machine, and allowed Edward to step into her dream as well. In the future, countless children suffering from fractured minds would come here, and all of them would be healed by love, embraced by Catherine's strength, countless young Carls walking out of the abyss of suffering. The Cell is a work of high artistic value. Its stunning imagery and striking color contrasts its greatest hallmark with many visual homages to famous paintings. The storyline is bold and creative, making it a film truly worth revisiting again and again. If you are interested, you should definitely find time to watch the original film. See you next time.